Do you have any expired cake for my daughter? Tomorrow is her birthday. The owner looked the black mother up and down, faded scrubs, second-hand shoes, little girl clutching her hand, and sneered. We don't sell garbage to garbage. Her son stepped forward. You people always want something for nothing. Take your welfare kids somewhere else. We don't serve your kind. The little girl trembled. Mommy, what did I do wrong? A white woman in pearls whispered, Can you believe she brought that child in here? The son grabbed the pink cake the girl had been staring at and slammed it into the trash. Get out before you stink up the place. The black mother lifted her sobbing daughter and walked out, head high, silent. No one defended her. But at the back of the line, a quiet old man had crushed his coffee cup in his fist. No one knew who he was. In 48 hours, everyone here would be begging her for forgiveness. Evelyn Ford had counted the money 3 times that morning, once at the kitchen table while Destiny slept, the bills spread out under the bare bulb that flickered every time someone upstairs flushed the toilet. Once on the bus, shielding the crumpled bills from curious eyes, pretending to check her phone while her fingers did the math again. Once more standing outside the bakery, her fingers numb despite the Georgia warmth, hoping she'd somehow miscounted. $11.37. She'd found 2 quarters wedged between the couch cushions while searching for Destiny's missing sock, and it felt like a sign, like maybe, just maybe, today would be different. The universe throwing her a bone. A tiny miracle wrapped in copper and silver. The bell above Main Street Bakery's door chimed as she stepped inside, Destiny's small hand wrapped tightly in hers. The bakery smelled like heaven. Warm bread fresh from the oven, cinnamon swirling through the air, something chocolate cooling on a rack near the back. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting soft light over marble countertops and gleaming display cases. Everything here whispered of tradition, of money, of belonging to a world Evelyn had only ever glimpsed from the outside. Destiny's eyes went wide as dinner plates, reflecting the rows of cakes and pastries gleaming behind spotless glass. Her grip on Evelyn's hand tightened with excitement. Mommy, look! Destiny tugged at her sleeve, practically bouncing with excitement, pointing at a pink cake decorated with a sugar princess in a ball gown. That one's so pretty! It has a princess on it, and look at the sparkles! Evelyn's stomach tightened into a familiar knot. She knew that cake. She'd seen it in the window every time she walked past on her way to the bus stop at 5:47 a.m., heading to her first shift at Sunrise Senior Care. She'd memorized every detail during those cold morning walks. The delicate lacework of frosting, the tiny sugar roses, the way the princess seemed to dance in her gown. $42, more than 3 times what she had in her purse. It's beautiful, baby. She smoothed Destiny's braids, still slightly damp from the rushed bath this morning. She'd had to choose between a longer bath and breakfast 1. Let Mommy look around first, okay? The line stretched almost to the door. Saturday afternoon, everyone buying treats for the weekend. Evelyn scanned the customers waiting ahead of her. White faces, every single one. Nice clothes, pressed blouses, designer jeans, handbags that cost more than her rent. Easy smiles exchanged between neighbors who'd known each other for generations. She was the only black face in the bakery, but she was used to that by now. Madison, Georgia wasn't the kind of town that advertised its demographics on welcome signs. You just felt them, in the way conversations paused half a beat when she entered a room. In the way clerks watched her hands a little too closely at the checkout counter. In the way people smiled with their mouths, but not their eyes. She scanned the display cases while they waited, looking for yellow stickers. Day-old items, reduced for quick sale. Every grocery store had them. Every bakery should. Her eyes found a pink cake near the back with a handwritten sign, Today only, 50% off. She did the math in her head, hope flickering. $17.50. Still too much. Still $6 more than everything she had. Maybe they have something older, she thought. Something they'd throw away anyway. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something. Anything with candles and frosting that says, "I tried." She'd done this before. At the grocery store on 5th Street, where the manager sometimes let her take the bruised fruit. At the deli counter downtown, where the evening clerk saved her the end pieces of ham. There was an art to asking, humble enough to seem grateful, confident enough to not seem desperate. Destiny hummed a birthday song under her breath, swinging Evelyn's hand back and forth like a pendulum. 7 years old tomorrow. 7 years of Evelyn working 2 jobs, the nursing home from 6 to 2, then the cleaning service from 4 to 8. 7 years of missing school plays and recitals, of falling asleep on the couch before dinner was done, of waking up at 5 a.m. feeling like she'd never slept at all. 7 years of barely enough, of stretching dollars like taffy, of promising, next year will be better, and watching next year arrive just as hard as the last. She deserves a cake, Evelyn thought, watching her daughter's face light up at every confection in the case. Just once in her life, she deserves a real birthday cake from a real bakery. Not a box mix with grocery store frosting. Not cupcakes made from scratch at midnight because I couldn't afford anything else. A real cake. The line shuffled forward. Evelyn noticed the photos covering the wall behind the counter. Black and white images, sepia-toned memories framed in mahogany. Thornton Family Bakery, Est, 1983. 3 generations of the same family, all white, all smiling, standing in front of this very counter with flour-dusted aprons and proud expressions. The town institution, the place where Madison had celebrated every wedding, every graduation, every milestone for 40 years. Everybody knew the Thorntons. Everyone except her. The bell chimed again behind them. Evelyn didn't turn. She was too busy rehearsing her question, trying to find exactly the right words. "Excuse me, do you have any day-old items? Anything you're about to throw away? I can pay a little something." A man entered. White, maybe 60, gray hair that needed a trim, worn flannel shirt tucked into old khaki pants. Work boots, scuffed and dusty from honest labor. He carried a paper coffee cup from the diner next door, steam curling up through the sip hole. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't greet the other customers the way locals tended to. Just took his place at the end of the line, eyes drifting up to the menu board on the wall. Evelyn didn't notice him at all. Neither did anyone else. He was just an old man in work clothes, invisible in a room full of people who'd never had to count their quarters. An elderly woman near the front of the line smiled down at Destiny with genuine warmth. "Is it your birthday, sweetheart?" Destiny beamed like the sun had taken up residence in her smile. "Tomorrow. I'm gonna be 7. 7! My goodness, that's wonderful. Are you having a party?" Mommy promised. Destiny looked up at Evelyn with absolute, unshakable trust, the kind that made Evelyn's chest ache with love and fear in equal measure. "She said it's gonna be special." Evelyn's throat tightened around words she couldn't say. She had no decorations waiting at home, no presents wrapped in pretty paper, no guests invited because she couldn't afford to feed them. But she'd made a promise, and she intended to keep it, somehow, some way. The line moved forward. One customer left with a white box tied in string, then another. Evelyn reached the counter. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Behind the register stood Peggy Thornton, owner, matriarch, the woman whose face hung on the wall in all those sepia photographs. Mid-60s, silver hair pinned back in an elegant twist, reading glasses on a beaded chain around her neck. She looked up from the register, customer service smile already in place. That smile flickered when she saw Evelyn. Just slightly. A tightening around the eyes, a barely perceptible pause, like a record skipping half a beat. But Evelyn felt it the way you feel a change in air pressure before a storm. She always did. Evelyn took a steadying breath. "Excuse me, do you have any expired cakes? Anything you're about to throw away?" She kept her voice low and respectful, It's for my daughter's birthday. Peggy's eyebrows rose toward her hairline. She glanced down at Destiny, then back at Evelyn. Expired cakes? Yes, ma'am. I can pay something. Whatever you think is fair. Peggy's lips pressed into a thin line. We throw those out. Health regulations. I understand. But if you're throwing them away anyway, maybe I could... I said no. Peggy's voice hardened, carrying across the bakery. The woman behind Evelyn stopped texting. We don't do that here. A door swung open behind Peggy. A man emerged, mid-30s, same sharp jaw as his mother. Mitchell Thornton, son, heir apparent. He wore a flour-dusted apron and an expression that made clear he'd heard every word. Problem, Mom? Just explaining our policies. Mitchell's eyes swept over Evelyn with deliberate slowness, her scrubs, her daughter, back to her face. This isn't Walmart. His voice was loud, deliberately performative. Customers turned to stare. If you can't afford to shop here, there's a dollar store 2 blocks down. Might be more your speed. The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Evelyn's cheeks burned, but she kept her voice steady. I wasn't asking for charity. I was offering to pay... For garbage? Mitchell snorted. Lady, we have standards. This is a family establishment. He turned to his mother, speaking loudly. We don't want certain kinds of people thinking they can just walk in here asking for handouts. Certain kinds of people. The phrase hung in the air like poison gas. Several customers found their phones fascinating. One woman pulled her child closer. A man studied his watch with intense concentration. Destiny tugged Evelyn's hand. Mommy, can I have the pink one? She pointed at the 50% off cake, hope still alive in her voice. It's so pretty. Please? Not today, baby. Evelyn's voice cracked despite her best efforts. Mitchell followed Destiny's gaze. Something shifted in his expression. Not sympathy, but something darker. A decision being made. You know what? He stepped toward the display case, keys jangling. Let me make something perfectly clear. He opened the glass door, reached in, and pulled out the pink cake, the one Destiny had been staring at, the one marked for sale. This cake? He held it up, turning it so everyone could see. This is going in the trash. Right now. So there's no confusion. He walked to the garbage can, lifted the lid with theatrical slowness, and threw the cake inside. The wet thud of frosting hitting plastic. Pink roses smeared against black garbage bags, sugar flowers crushed under coffee grounds. Destiny's face crumbled. Her lip trembled. Then the tears came, silent at first, then building into hiccuping sobs. Mommy? Her voice broke, high and confused. Why did he throw my cake away? The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. A woman near the door looked like she wanted to say something. Her mouth opened. She caught Mitchell's flat stare and turned away. Evelyn's hands shook as she lifted Destiny into her arms. It's okay, baby. Let's go. There. Mitchell brushed his hands together, satisfied. Problem solved. Peggy didn't stop him, didn't apologize. Just watched as Evelyn carried her sobbing daughter toward the door. At the back of the line, the man in the flannel shirt hadn't moved. His weathered face showed nothing, no shock, no anger, no expression at all. But his right hand had squeezed the paper coffee cup so hard the lid had popped clean off. Brown liquid dripped steadily down his fingers, pooling on the tile floor. He didn't seem to notice, didn't wipe it away. His eyes were locked on Mitchell Thornton with an intensity that should have made the younger man's blood run cold. He set the crushed, empty cup on the nearest counter. Didn't buy anything. Walked out the door behind Evelyn, his footsteps unhurried but deliberate. Behind him, Peggy's voice floated. Mitchell, clean up that mess. And somebody mop up whatever that old man spilled. No one mentioned Evelyn. No one mentioned the little girl crying for her birthday cake. Outside, the Georgia sun was warm on Evelyn's skin, but she felt cold down to her bones. She found the old wooden bench near the bakery entrance and sank down, Destiny still trembling in her arms. She let herself break, just a little, just for a moment. Destiny's sobs had quieted to wet hiccups. "Why was he so mean, Mommy? Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby." Evelyn wiped her own eyes quickly. "You didn't do anything wrong at all." "Then why? Why did he throw away the pretty cake?" "Because some people are cruel. Because I can't give you what you deserve. Some people forget how to be kind, baby. That's about them, not you. It's never about you." "Ma'am?" Evelyn looked up, tensing. The man from the line stood a few feet away, hands empty now. He didn't step closer, just waited. Another lecture about the dollar store. "Mind if I sit?" He gestured to the far end of the bench. She didn't answer, but she didn't say no. He sat down, leaving plenty of space between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he turned to Destiny, his voice soft. "Hey there, sweetheart." Destiny peeked out from Evelyn's shoulder, eyes still wet. "I heard it's your birthday tomorrow, is that right?" A small nod. "How old are you gonna be?" 7. Barely a whisper. 7. He nodded slowly, as if this were important information. "That's a big one. You know what I think?" Destiny's curiosity began winning against her tears. "What?" "I think 7-year-olds deserve the best birthday cakes in the world. And that pink cake in there? It wasn't good enough for you anyway." "Really?" "Really. A princess like you deserves something much more special." The ghost of a smile crossed Destiny's face. "Promise?" "I promise." Evelyn watched this exchange with growing confusion. "Sir, I appreciate the kind words, but—" He turned to her, and something in his eyes made her stop. Not pity. Something else. Recognition. "I'm sorry for what happened in there. What they did. That wasn't right. None of it. It's fine. We're used to—" "You shouldn't have to be used to it." His voice was gentle but carried steel underneath. "No one should." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a plain white card. Just a phone number written in blue ink. "Call this number tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock sharp. Tell them Edward sent you." He held out the card. "Destiny will have her birthday cake. A real one." Evelyn stared at the card. "Why would you do this? You don't even know us." "Because no child should go without a birthday cake." He stood, brushing off his khakis. "And no mother should ever be treated the way they treated you today. Not in my town." "Your town?" But he was already walking away, toward a beat-up pickup truck parked across the street. Destiny watched him go. "He was nice, Mommy." "Yeah, baby. He was." Evelyn tucked the card in her pocket. She didn't know if she'd call, didn't know if she could trust a stranger's promise. But for the first time all day, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Evelyn didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark of their one-bedroom apartment, listening to Destiny breathe beside her on their shared mattress, the one she'd bought second-hand 3 years ago when Destiny outgrew the crib. The water stain on the ceiling had spread another inch since last month, a slow-growing map of the neighbor's leaky pipes. The radiator clanged like a restless ghost every few hours. The card sat on the nightstand, pale against the scarred wood. She'd looked at it a dozen times, picked it up, put it down, just a phone number in blue ink. No name, no explanation. Who does that? She wondered for the 100th time. Who gives a stranger a card and promises a birthday cake? What does he want in return? Nothing good came free. She'd learned that lesson young, from her mother who worked 3 jobs, from her father who promised to come back and never did, from every man who'd offered help with one hand while reaching for something else with the other. But what's the worst that could happen? The thought surfaced unbidden. I call. It's a disconnected number or a cruel joke, and I'm exactly where I am now. No worse off. She thought about Destiny's face in the bakery, the way her smile had crumbled, the confusion in her voice. Why did he throw my cake away? At 7:45 the next morning, Destiny's 7th birthday, Evelyn sat at the kitchen table and made herself dial. It rang twice. Lancaster Family Office, good morning. How may I help you? Lancaster? The voice was professional, polished, the kind that answered phones in law firms, in places she'd cleaned but never belonged. Someone named Edward told me to call this number? A brief pause, keys clicking. Then, warmer. Yes, ma'am. We've been expecting your call. May I have your address? Expecting her call. Whatever Evelyn had imagined, a disconnected number, a scam, a cruel joke, it wasn't this. She gave her address, voice uncertain. The woman thanked her and hung up. Lancaster. The name tugged at her memory. She'd seen it on brass plaques around town, the library she visited with Destiny every Saturday, the community center, the courthouse, old money, old family, the kind of name that opened doors. 2 hours later, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up outside her building. Evelyn watched from the window, heart hammering, as a driver in a crisp suit stepped out. He was too polished for this neighborhood. Mr. Patterson from 3B came out onto his fire escape in his bathrobe, staring. Mrs. Rodriguez stood on the sidewalk with her toddler, openly gawking. The driver began unloading boxes, pink boxes, gold boxes, more boxes than she could count. Then balloons, dozens of them, pink and gold, bobbing in the morning breeze. Mommy? Destiny appeared beside her, still in pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. What's all that? Is there a party? A knock at the door. Evelyn's hands shook as she reached for the knob. The driver held a massive pink box, easily 2 feet across. Behind him, more boxes, a cascade of balloons, wrapped presents with silver bows. Mrs. Ford, special delivery for Miss Destiny. Happy birthday, young lady. The cake was 3 tiers tall, pink and gold, decorated with real flowers, actual roses preserved in edible glaze, their petals soft and perfect. Destiny in elegant gold script, each letter perfectly formed. A crystal princess at the peak, crown catching the light and scattering rainbows across the ceiling. It was the most beautiful thing Evelyn had ever seen. More beautiful than the cake in the bakery window. More beautiful than anything she'd ever imagined giving her daughter. Destiny screamed, a sound of pure, unfiltered joy that probably woke half the building. Is that mine? Mommy, is that for me? It's a real princess cake. There were more treasures. A princess dress in Destiny's exact size, pink tulle with a satin ribbon, the kind of dress little girls dream about. Books, new hardcovers, not thrift store paperbacks, smelling like fresh ink and possibility. Art supplies, real paints, real brushes, a child-sized easel, and tucked in the corner of the last box, a pink and white bicycle with training wheels and streamers. Destiny had been asking for a bicycle for 2 years, and an envelope. Evelyn, in careful handwriting. She opened it with trembling fingers while Destiny spun in circles wearing her new dress. Dear Evelyn, every child deserves to feel special on their birthday. Your daughter is lucky to have a mother who loves her the way you do. My late wife, Margaret, was a lot like you. She spent her life caring for others, as a nurse, as a volunteer, as the heart of our family. She taught me that dignity isn't given by others. It's something you carry within, something no one can take away. But she also taught me, when we have the power to protect someone's dignity, we must use it. We must act. Watching in silence makes us complicit. I hope Destiny has the birthday she deserves. Warmly, Edward Evelyn read it 3 times. Then she sat on the mattress, their mattress, in their cramped apartment, surrounded now by more abundance than she'd seen in years, and cried. Not sad tears, not frustrated tears, just release. Like something clenched tight inside her for years had finally let go. Edward Lancaster's farmhouse sat on 40 acres outside Madison, on land his grandfather had purchased in 1932 when it was nothing but red clay and cotton fields. The house itself was modest, white clapboard that needed paint, green shutters his wife had picked out 30 years ago, a wraparound porch with rocking chairs where they'd sat together every evening until she couldn't anymore. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would suggest the man inside owned half the commercial property in 3 counties. He parked the old pickup in the gravel drive and sat for a moment, hands still on the wheel, watching the sun sink toward the tree line. Margaret would have done something, he thought. She never would have just stood there watching. She would have spoken up right there in that bakery. She would have protected that woman and her daughter the way no one ever protected her. He went inside. The screen door creaked the way it had for 20 years. He kept meaning to oil it, kept forgetting, kept not wanting to change anything she'd touched. The kitchen still looked exactly the way she'd left it. Yellow curtains she'd sewn by hand one summer, dishes she'd fallen in love with at an antique shop in Savannah, photographs covering the refrigerator door like a collage of their life together, their daughter's first steps, their 30th anniversary. Margaret accepting an award for her literacy program, surrounded by children who'd learned to read because of her. He couldn't change any of it. Some people said he should move on. Those people had never lost someone who'd made them who they were. In his study, one wall was covered with photographs in mismatched frames. Margaret at their wedding in 1975, her in a white dress her mother had made from second-hand lace, him in a rented suit too big. Both of them certain they'd love each other forever. Margaret with their daughter at every age. Margaret in a hospital bed, 2 weeks before the end, still smiling, still holding his hand, still telling him not to worry. He picked up the phone. Daniel, it's Edward. Pull the lease file for Main Street Bakery, the Thornton property, and check if there have been any complaints filed against them in the past 2 years. An hour later, Daniel called back. 3 formal complaints in 18 months, all from black customers. Rude treatment, refused service, racial remarks, all marked, resolved, no action. No action, as if the complaints had never happened, as if those people's experiences didn't count. Edward wrote down every name, every date. That evening, he sat by the window with Margaret's photograph cradled in his hands. 35 years, he said quietly. 35 years I watched people treat you like you were less than you were. In stores where clerks followed you, in restaurants where we waited twice as long, at the doctor's office, in our own church, Margaret, where women whispered behind your back because you'd married a white man. He touched her face in the photograph. I couldn't stop it all. There was too much, too many people, too many small cruelties dressed up as tradition. He set down the photograph. But I can stop this. This one thing. I can make them see. The party was small. Evelyn, Destiny, little Keisha from next door, Mrs. Patterson with paper plates. But it was perfect. Destiny wore her new princess dress, twirling until dizzy. When they brought out the cake, she held up her hand. Wait, we have to say grace first. They held hands around the tiny kitchen table. Thank you, God, Destiny said, for Mommy and for my birthday, and for the nice man with the coffee. I hope he's having a good day, too. Amen. Evelyn couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. She just held her daughter's hand and let the tears fall. Edward sat at his desk, folder open. Lease agreement. Main Street Bakery. 38 years of tenancy. Renewal due in 45 days. He picked up a yellow sticky note, wrote one word, and pressed it to the file. No. Daniel, schedule a meeting with the Thorntons. Monday, 10 a.m. Don't tell them who they're meeting with. Edward looked at Margaret's photograph on his desk. For you. All of it. For you. The complaints file was thicker than Edward expected. He spread the documents across his desk Monday morning. Names, dates, specific incidents. Teresa Williams, October, told an item was reserved, watched a white woman buy it 5 minutes later. Mitchell suggested she might be more comfortable shopping elsewhere. Jerome Baptiste, March, followed around the store by Mitchell, asked repeatedly if he needed help finding the exit. Denise Crawford, June, tried to return stale bread, was accused of trying to scam the bakery. Mitchell threatened to call police. 3 complaints, 3 black customers, all marked resolved, no action. Edward picked up the phone. Mrs. Williams, my name is Edward Lancaster. I own the building where Main Street Bakery operates. I'd like to hear what happened to you there. Silence. Then cautiously, who did you say you were? Edward Lancaster. Lancaster Properties. This isn't a trick. I just want to know what happened. She told him. The humiliation. The dismissal. Mitchell's smirk. I've been buying bread there 15 years. My mother bought bread there. After that day, I never went back. I believe you, and I'm sorry it happened. Are you going to do something about it? Yes, ma'am, I am. 2 more calls, 2 more stories. 2 more people made to feel less than human in a building his family had owned for generations. When he was done, Edward opened his notebook and wrote, Mitchell Thornton, this isn't Walmart, more your speed. Might be more comfortable elsewhere. Peggy Thornton, certain kinds of people. Wrong part of town. Actions, destroyed merchandise to prevent sale to black customer. In front of child. Pattern, at least 4 documented incidents in 18 months. He closed the notebook, looked at Margaret's photo. All those years, all those times she'd come home quiet, and when he asked what was wrong, she'd shake her head. It's fine, Edward. I'm used to it. She shouldn't have had to be used to it. He checked his watch. Meeting in 90 minutes. He laid out his clothes, same flannel shirt, same khakis, same boots. He wanted them to see exactly who they'd dismissed. The man in line behind her. The man nobody noticed. The man who owned the ground they stood on. Peggy Thornton arrived at Lancaster Property Management at 9:55 a.m., 5 minutes early, dressed in her Sunday best, navy blazer, floral blouse, her good pearls. Mitchell followed in pressed khakis and a sport coat, looking annoyed at being pulled away from the bakery. I don't see why we have to be here, he muttered as they signed the visitor log. We've never missed a payment in 38 years. Shush. Peggy smoothed her skirt with nervous hands. Just be polite. We need this renewal. The terms haven't changed since your grandmother signed the original. The receptionist led them down a carpeted hallway to a corner office, plain, unassuming, no nameplate on the door. Mr. Lancaster will be with you shortly. They sat in leather chairs facing an empty desk and waited. 1 minute, 5, 10. Mitchell shifted impatiently. This is ridiculous. What kind of business person keeps people waiting like this? Who do these people think? The door opened behind them. A man stepped in. Gray hair that needed trimming, flannel shirt tucked into old khaki pants, work boots, scuffed and dusty. He looked like a maintenance man, not a property owner. Peggy frowned, her professional smile faltering. Excuse me, we're waiting for Mr. Lancaster, the property owner. Can you tell him? I am Edward Lancaster. The words hung in the air like a held breath. Mitchell's face went through confusion, recognition, and dawning horror in 3 heartbeats. The man from the bakery, the quiet one in line, the one with the coffee cup who'd walked out without buying anything. Peggy still hadn't made the connection. "I'm sorry. There must be some mistake. We were told we'd be meeting with the property owner." "You are meeting with the property owner." Edward closed the door with a soft click, crossed to the desk, sat down slowly, deliberately. "I am Edward Lancaster. My family has owned this building since 1956. My grandfather bought it from the original developer. My father maintained it for 30 years. I've managed the Lancaster properties for 3 decades. He didn't invite them to sit. They remained frozen in their chairs anyway. Saturday afternoon. Edward's voice was calm, which somehow made it more frightening. Your bakery. A mother came in with her daughter. The little girl was turning 7 the next day. He paused. The mother asked, and I will quote her exactly, "Do you have any expired cakes? It's for my daughter's birthday." She was offering to pay. Peggy's hand flew to her throat. The color drained from her face. "Mr. Lancaster, I can explain. Do you remember what you said, Mitchell?" Mitchell's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. I remember." Edward opened his leather notebook. "This isn't Walmart. There's a dollar store 2 blocks down. Might be more your speed. We have standards. We don't want certain kinds of people thinking they can just walk in here asking for handouts." He looked up and met Mitchell's eyes. Certain kinds of people. Peggy had started crying, silent tears cutting tracks through her makeup. "Mr. Lancaster, we didn't know you were—" "Didn't know I was what?" His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Didn't know I was watching? Didn't know I was the kind of person who would care? That's exactly the problem, Mrs. Thornton. You didn't think anyone who mattered was paying attention." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a photograph in a silver frame, setting it between them on the polished wood. A wedding photo. Edward, young and beaming, in a suit that didn't quite fit. And beside him, radiant in white, flowers woven through her hair, a beautiful black woman with a smile that could light up a room. "My wife." Edward's voice softened, but his eyes stayed hard. "Margaret. We were married for 35 years. She passed 8 years ago. Cancer took her body, but the world had been trying to diminish her spirit long before that." He touched the frame gently, the way you touch something precious. "For 35 years, I watched people treat her the way you treated that woman on Saturday. In stores, where clerks followed her like a criminal. In restaurants where we waited twice as long. In our own church, where women who called themselves Christians whispered behind her back." Mitchell stared at the photograph. Something cracked behind his eyes. "She was beautiful," he said quietly. "She was everything." Edward walked to the window, looked out at Main Street below. "I couldn't protect her from all of it. Too many people, too many places, too many small cruelties dressed up as tradition." He turned back to face them. "But I can protect others now." "Your lease expires in 45 days. I will not be renewing it." Peggy's gasp was almost a sob. "Mr. Lancaster, please. This bakery is everything we have. My mother started it 40 years ago. Your mother served everyone who walked through that door with dignity. I remember her. I used to buy bread from her when Margaret and I were newlyweds." His voice hardened. "She would have been ashamed, deeply ashamed, of what that bakery has become." Mitchell looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. 45 days. What you do with them is up to you." Peggy was sobbing openly now. "Is there anything we can do? Anything at all?" Edward was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, still firm, but with something else underneath. "Maybe. That depends entirely on you. These are my conditions. Edward slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. Peggy's hands trembled so badly she could barely hold it. Mitchell read over her shoulder, his face cycling through disbelief, shame, and finally something that might have been the beginning of acceptance. First, you will go to Evelyn Ford's home, both of you, together. You will apologize to her in person, face to face, not because I'm forcing you, but because it's right. It's what decent human beings do when they've wronged someone. He paused, letting the words settle. And you'll do it in front of her daughter. That little girl needs to see that adults can take responsibility for cruelty. She needs to know what happened to her wasn't acceptable. Peggy nodded, tears still flowing freely. Second, you will establish a program called Margaret's Birthday Project. Edward's voice softened noticeably on his wife's name. Every month your bakery will provide free birthday cakes to 10 children from families in need, regardless of who they are, what they look like, or where they come from. You'll fund it from bakery profits, and Evelyn Ford will coordinate it. She'll decide which families receive help. Mitchell looked up sharply. You want her to work with us? After what we— Yes, Edward cut him off. Cut him. Because redemption doesn't happen in isolation, Mr. Thornton. It happens in community. It happens when you sit across from the person you've wronged and build something meaningful together. He met Mitchell's eyes without flinching. And because she deserves to be the one making those decisions. She understands what these families are going through. She's lived it. You haven't. Mitchell said nothing. His jaw worked silently. Third, you, Mitchell, will complete 100 hours of community service at the Madison Food Bank. Actual work. Sorting food, stocking shelves, serving meals to people in need. Not a charity gala. Not a check with your name on it. 100 hours over 6 months. No exceptions. 100 hours? The protest escaped before Mitchell could stop it. You threw a birthday cake in the trash in front of a 7-year-old girl. Edward's voice went cold as winter. You did it deliberately, to make a point, to humiliate her mother. You made a child cry on the day before her birthday because you could, because it made you feel powerful. He leaned forward. You're getting off easy. Mitchell's protest died in his throat. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that had thrown that cake in the garbage, and said nothing. If you complete all 3 conditions within 45 days, I will renew your lease. 10 years. Below market rate. Edward stood, pushing back his chair. Because redemption should be possible, for anyone who's genuinely willing to earn it. Peggy clutched the paper like it was a lifeline. We'll do it. All of it. I swear to you. Don't swear to me. Edward picked up Margaret's photograph, looking at it for a long moment. Show me. 2 weeks later, the Thorntons' silver Mercedes pulled up outside Evelyn's apartment building at exactly 3 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Peggy sat rigid in the passenger seat, gripping her purse with white-knuckled hands. Mitchell hadn't moved from behind the steering wheel. I can't do this, he said, staring at the building, the cracked concrete steps, the peeling paint on the railings, the overflowing dumpster by the side entrance. This was where she lived. This was the life he'd mocked. We have to. Peggy's voice was barely audible. We have to. They sat there for 5 full minutes, watching residents come and go, working up the courage to face what they'd done. Then Mitchell opened his door and stepped out. The stairs seemed to go on forever. The hallway smelled like cooking grease and industrial cleaner. When they reached apartment 4B, Peggy raised her hand to knock, and found she physically couldn't complete the motion. Her arm just stopped, trembling in the air. Mitchell reached past her and knocked 3 times. Footsteps inside. A pause. The click of locks being undone, first one, then another, then a chain. The door opened. Evelyn stood there in a faded t-shirt and worn jeans, Destiny at her side. She didn't speak, didn't smile, just looked at them. These people who had humiliated her, now standing in her hallway in her world, and waited. Peggy broke first. The words came tumbling out in a rush, tangled with tears. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For what I said. For what I allowed to happen. For who I was in that moment. There's no excuse. There's no justification. I was wrong. I was cruel. I was hateful. And you didn't deserve any of it, not one bit of it." Evelyn's expression didn't change. Her hand rested protectively on Destiny's shoulder. Mitchell stepped forward. Then slowly, deliberately, he lowered himself to one knee, putting himself at eye level with the little girl whose cake he'd destroyed. "Destiny." His voice came out rough, stripped of all its usual arrogance. "I threw your birthday cake in the garbage. That was cruel and wrong, and I am so sorry. You didn't deserve that. Nobody deserves that." He swallowed hard. "I was a bully. And bullies are the worst kind of coward. They hurt people who can't fight back because it makes them feel big. But it's not strength. It's weakness." Destiny studied him with the unblinking gaze that only children possess. The silence stretched. Mitchell's knee ached against the hard floor, but he didn't move. Then Destiny said softly, "It's okay. Mr. Edwards said you would come." Something shattered behind Mitchell's eyes. His head dropped. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. Destiny reached out and patted his hand gently, the way she might comfort a hurt animal. "Mommy says everyone makes mistakes. It's what you do after that matters." Evelyn invited them inside. It wasn't comfortable. The apartment was too small for 4 people and too full of everything that had happened between them. But they sat, Peggy on the worn sofa, Mitchell on a folding chair, and they talked. Peggy noticed the birthday decorations still hanging on the wall, faded now but carefully preserved. The handmade card on the refrigerator in Destiny's careful handwriting. The bicycle by the door. The photos of the birthday party pinned to a corkboard. She saw, perhaps for the first time, the life she'd dismissed, the dignity she'd tried to deny. When they left an hour later, nothing was fixed. Nothing was forgiven. Not fully, not yet. Wounds that deep don't heal in a single afternoon. But something had begun. A week later, Edward met with Evelyn in his office. "I'd like you to run Margaret's birthday project," he said. "Part-time, so you can keep your other work if you choose. Good salary, better than fair. Full benefits for you and Destiny. You'll coordinate with the bakery, identify families in need, make sure every child who deserves a birthday cake gets one." Evelyn stared at him across the desk, the same desk where he'd confronted the Thorntons. "Why me?" "Because you were kind to your daughter even when the world was cruel to you." He smiled slightly, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "That's exactly the kind of person who should be leading this." She looked down at her hands, the same hands that had counted $11.37, the same hands that had smoothed Destiny's hair while she sobbed. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll do it." 1 year later. The banner stretched across the community center stage, hand-painted in pink and gold by the volunteer committee. Margaret's birthday project, first anniversary. Evelyn stood at the podium, looking out at a room full of faces. Some she'd come to know well over the past year, others she was seeing for the first time. In the front row, Destiny sat wearing her junior volunteer badge, earned by helping pick colors and themes for 5 cakes that month. She took the responsibility very seriously. "A year ago," Evelyn began, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest, "I walked into a bakery and asked for an expired cake for my daughter's birthday. I had $11.37 in my pocket. Every penny I had in the world." She paused, letting the memory settle. "I walked out empty-handed and humiliated. I didn't know how I was going to make rent that month. I didn't know how I was going to explain to my daughter why she couldn't have a birthday cake like other kids. She looked out at the audience. The room was silent, waiting. Today, I stand here as the coordinator of Margaret's birthday project. In the past 12 months, 120 children have received birthday cakes through this program. 120 families have been told, "Your child matters. Your celebration matters. You matter." She looked at Edward, seated near the back, his weathered face half hidden in shadow. A stranger in line saw something wrong and did something about it. He changed my life, completely. And now I get to help change others' lives, too. The applause was long and warm. Destiny jumped up and down in her seat, clapping harder than anyone, beaming with pride for her mother. After the event, as people gathered around the refreshment table, a woman approached Evelyn. Mid-30s, professional clothes, nervous hands fidgeting with her purse strap. "You don't know me," she said, "but I was there that day. In the bakery. I was in line behind you." Evelyn studied her face. Then recognition dawned slowly. The woman who'd almost spoken. The one who'd opened her mouth and then closed it. The one who'd turned away. "I should have said something." The woman's voice cracked. "I've thought about it every day since. Every single day. The look on your daughter's face when he threw that cake away." She stopped, composing herself with visible effort. "I was a coward. I was afraid of making a scene, afraid of what they'd think of me. And I let you walk out of there alone." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Then she took the woman's hand gently. "You're here now. That matters." Sarah, that was her name, signed up to volunteer that same evening. She worked every Saturday after that, arriving early, staying late, handing cakes to mothers who reminded her of the one she'd failed to help. At the Madison Food Bank, Mitchell sorted canned goods alongside a new volunteer, a college kid doing community service hours for a class. Mitchell's designer watch was long gone, traded months ago for work gloves and something that felt uncomfortably like humility. "How'd you end up volunteering here?" the kid asked, stacking soup cans. "You don't seem like the usual type." Mitchell paused, a can of green beans in each hand. How to answer that? The truth was complicated. The truth was ugly. "I did something wrong," he said finally. "Really wrong. To a mother and her little girl." He set the cans on the shelf, taking his time, choosing his words carefully. "And instead of destroying me, someone gave me a chance to be better. So that's what I'm trying to do. Every day." The kid nodded, impressed despite himself. "Takes guts, admitting something like that. It took more guts for her to forgive me." Edward's farmhouse. A Saturday afternoon in October, the leaves turning gold and red. Destiny burst through the screen door without knocking. She'd stopped knocking months ago. "Mr. Edward!" She was waving a piece of paper, slightly crumpled from being gripped too tightly with excitement. Edward set down his book, already smiling. "Look what I made!" It was a crayon drawing. 2 stick figures, one tall with gray hair and a flannel shirt, one small in a pink dress with big pigtails. Between them, an enormous pink cake with lopsided candles and wobbly hearts floating around it. Above it, in her careful second-grade letters, "Mr. Edward and the Magic Cake." Edward's eyes welled up. He knelt down to her level, holding the drawing like it was made of gold and diamonds. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me." "It's for you to keep forever," Destiny said, beaming. "Because you gave me a cake. That's how it works, right? Someone does something nice, and then you do something nice back." "That's exactly how it works, sweetheart. That's exactly how it works." Her new house was small but bright, a rental on Maple Street with a real yard where Destiny could play, and neighbors who waved when she drove past. Nothing fancy. But it was theirs. On the wall, Destiny's framed artwork from school displayed like it belonged in a museum. On the refrigerator, a photograph of Evelyn speaking at the anniversary event, looking confident and proud. On the kitchen counter, a business card. Evelyn Ford, Community Relations Coordinator, Lancaster Properties. She stood at the stove making dinner while Destiny did homework at the kitchen table behind her. Through the window, she could see the safe street, the friendly neighborhood, the kind of life she'd once thought was meant for other people. A year ago, she'd stood in a bakery counting coins, hoping for scraps, preparing herself for rejection. Now she decided who received help. She trained volunteers. She gave speeches. She'd been interviewed by the local news, invited to join the mayor's community advisory board. People recognized her at the grocery store, not with suspicion, but with respect. She caught her reflection in the kitchen window. Same face, same tired eyes. But something was different. She finally looked like someone who mattered. Because she always had been. She just hadn't been seen. At Main Street Bakery, Peggy trained a new hire, a young black woman in her early 20s, fresh out of culinary school, nervous on her first day. "You'll make mistakes," Peggy said, not unkindly. "Everyone does. What matters is how you treat people while you're learning." She gestured at the line of customers, the mix of faces waiting for their morning bread. Every single person who walks through that door deserves to be treated with dignity. Every single one. Especially the ones who look like they can't afford much. They're the ones who need kindness most. The young woman nodded. "I understand." "Good." Peggy managed a small smile. "Now let me teach you Margaret's special recipe. Pink cake. Princess theme. It's our most requested." Edward sat on his porch, Margaret's photograph beside him, watching the sunset. A car appeared. Evelyn's new SUV, bought 6 months ago. Her first new car ever. Destiny exploded out before it stopped. "Mr. Edward, we brought you cake! For your birthday." She held a pink box. Inside, a homemade cake, slightly lopsided, Edward in wobbly letters. "I did the writing myself. It's a little crooked." "It's perfect. The most beautiful letters I've ever seen." They sat together. 3 chairs, cake between them. "She would have loved you both," Edward said. "Your wife?" "Yes, Margaret." "I wish I could meet her." "In a way, sweetheart. You already did." He raised his fork. "To second chances." "To second chances." Destiny grinned. "To cake." They ate as the sun went down. 3 people who'd been strangers, now family. This was legacy. Not buildings, not money. Just people taking care of each other, because someone showed them how. A year ago, Evelyn had $11 and a desperate question. "Any expired cake for my daughter?" Today she has a home, a career, a purpose. One quiet man in line changed everything. You never know who's watching. The mother asking for expired cake might be raising a future doctor. The old man behind you might own the building. But none of that should matter. Treat everyone with dignity, not because they might be powerful, but because they're human. And if you see something wrong, don't just watch. Do something. You might change someone's life forever. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it.